Okay, cool. And then, yeah, please, everybody that's in this group, if you have any questions while I'm going through, please jump in, um, derail me. Sometimes I start rambling. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the fly. So with this, I put together this quick guide on, I call it sustainable video creation, just so that way as a business owner, you can sustain actually doing this. You're not going to hopefully avoid getting burnt out or getting overwhelmed by creating the content, the amount of time that comes with creating it, and just keep everything simple. So I talk to a lot of business owners. I talk to a lot of marketing directors, and the big problem that they have with this is staying consistent because of a bunch of different factors. Sometimes it's they hate being on camera. I think everybody can relate to that. Once you stand in front of the camera, you just freeze up and you turn into a robot and your personality goes out the window. Don't know why it happens, but it does. You don't have the time to film. You got to run a business. You have to do other things. Also, a lot of people are pretty concerned about wasting money because, I mean, all of us have spent money on marketing in the past and pretty much nothing happened. So, that money might be spent better hiring somebody or buying new equipment, whatever it might be. It also comes down to they're not really sure what to talk about or where they should start this process. This is what we see pretty typically. And so what I want to cover in this guide is really just to keep the process simple and consistent. So I'll give you the rundown on how to do this. And either you can do this for yourself as a business owner, or if you're working at a company, how you can get the leadership kind of involved with this. But to get them comfortable on camera, reduce the time to less than an hour a month that you spend doing this, tap into your expertise. So that way, when you're talking about these things, it flows a little more naturally. You get a ton of great video content, but also to stay consistent. Now, this is stuff that we do help with. It's part of the services that we have, but I wanted to put this together in a way that you can actually do this yourself. So it makes sense. So one thing I do want to talk about with this is kind of an example of what works. So we have this Southwest Florida business podcast, Josh, that you mentioned before. And I want to just put this in context of how this can turn into actual revenue and actual opportunities. So we didn't spend any money on advertising. I think $200 one time early on in the show. But aside from that, for the 10 months that we filmed that first season, we recorded these interviews and we put out the videos, and those videos got around 165,000 views. Oh, look at that typo. Nice. And so ultimately that led to about $70,000 in direct revenue that came just from those videos that we put out, and around $200,000 in opportunities. I don't say that as like I don't know. It sounds weird to say that, but I just want to give some context of, hey, if you put these things out and you work it and create these relationships, you can actually get real results tied to revenue. And this is an hour-long interview that we chop into short clips, and then we put those clips out into multiple places. And a few reasons why this worked for us was really because all the time that we spent recording is kept to a minimum. We can chop these fuller interviews into a bunch of short video clips. We put those clips out to multiple places, and then those followers on the different channels like Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, those followers grow over time. So it kind of compounds. So the more that you put out, the more followers you get, the more your videos start to get views almost by default.
Hey, Chris, real quick, just for those that aren't familiar with it, the general format of your podcast basically is going on and interviewing a business owner, asking specific questions, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly it. Yeah, and actually I'll kind of dive into how you can kind of do this same thing for yourself. But I think this is probably a good time before we dive into it. Did anybody have any questions so far? Cool.
Actually,
Right.
I'm sorry, Chris, I have a question. It's Tracy Perazzi. When you're talking about the 70,000 in revenue and 200K in opportunities, can you explain the 200K in opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. So by putting these clips out on the different channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, people are finding me through those. And then I can start a conversation with them that's a little bit more organic and natural. They kind of have a sense of what I do now. And those things lead to conversations about us producing other videos for them, coming on the podcast, advertising, things like that. So they're actually finding me through those. Or one of the interesting things that happens with this is the cold calls become much warmer because you put these videos out. It's not like the phone's ringing off the hook suddenly because you put videos out, but if you're putting them out consistently over the course of 3, 6, 9 months, people are going to have seen you. And so when I call people now, it's like, oh, you're that guy with the podcast on LinkedIn, right? I saw you interviewed somebody that I know. Okay. All right. What do you do? How do you do it? Okay. Talk to me about that. It just makes it a lot less hey, who the hell are you calling me right now? Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Thank you.
Cool. No problem. Thanks for asking a question. Appreciate it. Yeah. Any other questions before we kind of dig into the meat of it?
I had one question. I guess my general idea with the podcast is a voice, but is it mostly, it's all video now and even other handouts and things involved?
It's a great question. And it's one of the challenges that I've had as a business owner, especially calling myself Southwest Florida Podcast, is traditionally it's been audio only. And while we do with our podcast, put it out in audio format, we also film that interview. And so from the marketing perspective, I think it adds a lot of value when you film it because you do have the ability to extract out all of this video content, which you can put on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all these video centric platforms. So with a valuable conversation that's an hour long where somebody might listen on a podcast, which is great for people that maybe are a little further down in the buying process. They might, somebody that's willing to give you an hour because they think it's interesting. They may like it in video, they might like it in audio, but they're getting that message. Whereas if you chop those into small video clips and then release them on these different platforms, they're a little higher in the funnel, more, and you're kind of just building awareness of who you are and what you do. That's how we've kind of broken that out.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Did that help answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Cool. This is awesome. Thank you guys for chiming in. I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So I wanted to show you, give you a loose rundown of how we help people and what you can do. And if you guys want, I can always send you this presentation so you can take this and start using it for yourself. But really overall, the plan, what we help people with and what you can do for yourself, even if you get somebody at your company to help you with this, is you're going to film an interview either with you on camera or other members of your leadership team where you answer questions about your business. And then you're going to edit those into small clips and then release each clip on multiple platforms. So these are kind of the steps listed out. Develop 10 questions to ask yourself or your leadership team. Film yourself answering each question. Edit these answers into 10 short clips. Release the clips on multiple platforms and repeat each month. So we'll dig into each of these. And again, please stop me as we go if you have any questions. So the whole point is to keep this simple and do it in less than an hour. So when you're building that list of 10 questions, I highly recommend starting with how you help your customers at least. A lot of people ask me like, what should I talk about? Things like that. Start there, dig into that first. And as you start answering that question, you'll be able to create additional questions that come from that answer. So dive into a specific customer situation, whatever that might be. Again, film yourself answering these, chop them into short clips, release several each week, and then repeat this process each month. So let's dive into it. So one thing you'll need is you'll probably need some customers, but you'll need a phone or a camera. You can even do this through Zoom if you want to. A somewhat decent microphone helps. It's not a requirement, but it does help make things convey a little bit more professionally. There are editing softwares out there that are free, that are powerful and not super complex. You'll need to build out your social media channels, create an Instagram, a LinkedIn, and YouTube Shorts has been great for us lately. And then somebody to ask you these questions, to answer you filming them, whatever it may be. So again, like I said, start by answering the question, what are the main challenges that your customers face? And then how do you help them solve those problems? So I give an example here, and I actually pulled this from an interview we just did with a bank down in Naples, and they're a local bank. Main thing, the main people they're helping are business owners, and they're small to medium-sized businesses. And all those business owners, a lot of them say like, our current bank doesn't give us the support that we need or the customer service that we need. Whenever we have an issue, we go to a 1-800 number. And if I have an emergency, I need to talk to somebody now. And that's the problem that they help solve. So a lot of what we ended up talking about in this interview was geared around how they help people, why they do what they do, the challenges that their customers face. And we were able to actually pull 15 clips out of there. I say 10 because it's more manageable, but start by answering those questions, because when you put that content out, you're going to be answering questions that people will have for you in the sales process. And if you can get ahead of that, you'll find the right people through that method. And then from there, that's where you can really dig into how you help people with examples, who from your team member helped them. What does it look like for somebody to transfer over to working with you? Like, how do you guide them through that process? What are people afraid of before moving? Because some of you guys have businesses where it's not an easy decision for somebody to move their entire operation over to you, or there may be risks, like they could lose something if it happens. So how do you mitigate that? And use these to come up with your first list of 10 questions. So before I dive into the filming piece, what questions do you guys have about creating these questions? What questions do you have about the question? Cool. No questions about the questions. All right, cool. So let's dig into the filming part. So there's two ways that you can do this. You can do this in person, and I recommend if you're not camera savvy or you don't have one, but you have a decent phone, like a iPhone, 13 or 14, whatever it might be. Honestly, these will get the job done just fine. Put yourself in some decent lighting and you can make this work. If it looks really bad, maybe try to find a better camera or borrow your spouse's phone or whatever it might be if they've got a good camera, but keep that process as simple as possible. You can also do it through Zoom. So if you've got a camera like this and somebody can ask you through there, just record it. One thing I'll say though, if you've got that list of 10 questions, put a pause between each answer, and then have somebody actually ask you those questions. So it's a little more conversational. It flows a little more naturally and it's not so robotic, but putting a pause between these will make it easier for you to edit. So I didn't put the editing slide in here, but pretty much what you want to do is you can find a software. There's a few different ones out there. There's a software called DaVinci Resolve. That's a free editing software. You can go in, upload your video file there, and then chop it into smaller clips. You can use iMovie if you've got that. And then there's also a tool called Descript that we use that you can upload the whole thing in, export small pieces, and you can actually add captions through that. It automatically transcribes it for you. It's pretty cool software. So I forgot to put it in this slide, but if you guys want, just reach out and I can include that in